It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. The famous opening of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities is just as applicable to life today as it was when Dickens first published that story. No example of that is clearer than the tale of two states, actually. The contrast between left-wing California and free-market governed Florida, as was debated on primetime television this week with the showdown between Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and Gavin Newsom of California. The free state of Florida, a success story in state public policy, is a model for other states to imitate. California, on the other hand, is a model for other states to avoid. California most reminds us of the famous line from the great Ronald Reagan. The liberal view of the economy can be summed up as this: if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. Just look at where people are voting with their feet today. Data from the Internal Revenue Service, as well as United Van Lines and U-Haul, show that Americans are increasingly moving from high-tax states like California to low-tax states like Florida. Families and businesses cannot get out of California fast enough today. On the other hand, Americans are flocking to the Sunshine State. In the last decade, Florida has gained more than 1.6 million residents from net domestic migration from the other 49 states, while California lost more than 1.5 million over the same time period. Naysayers would argue that taxes don't matter when it comes to where people choose to move. But from domestic migration alone, it's clear that that's a myth. The 9 states without a personal income tax gained a total of 3.6 million residents over the last decade, while the 9 states with the highest personal income taxes lost 3.3 million residents over that same time period. The same naysayers will argue that it's the weather, of all things, causing Americans to move. We're often told that Americans are moving south and west for better climate in terms of the weather, into states that just happen to have lower taxes and pro-growth policies. The case of California clearly refutes that migration can be explained by weather alone. Of course, the Golden State, with its highly desirable Mediterranean climate, is losing residents at a faster pace than any other state besides high-tax New York. When asked to decide between two warm climates, Florida and California, the data show people move to Florida, the place for the better economic policy. In the latest edition of the ALEC Economic Outlook rankings from Rich States, Poor States, Florida came in 9th best for economic outlook and first for economic performance. Meanwhile, California has ranked 45th for economic outlook. Florida beats California in 13 out of the 15 variables considered in Rich States, Poor States. As Kansas Policy Institute President Dave Trobert and I noted in the Wall Street Journal a couple of years ago, the 41 states with an income tax spent 55% more per resident per year than the states without an income tax. That's the secret to the success of the no-income tax states. They're more frugal with spending taxpayer dollars. Florida, which doesn't have an income tax, spent roughly half as much per resident as California, which has a top marginal personal income tax rate over 13%. If all else remains equal going forward, Californians will be paying even higher taxes to pay off unfunded pension liabilities and debt, and seeing no increase in the quality of public services. While Florida has debts of its own, they're considerably smaller than those accrued by decades of careless spending in places like Sacramento. The Sunshine State is much better positioned to pay off its obligations without any tax increases. The time has long passed for lawmakers in California to see the error of their ways and make serious changes to the tax and fiscal policy system. The state's high taxes and regulations have led millions of Americans to vote with their feet, moving to states like Florida, which keep taxes low and exercise responsible spending. This enhanced focus on this tale of two states is an incredible educational opportunity for Americans as we decide what sort of government policies work best for us. It is clear Florida beats California by a country mile in every economic objective measure, and it gives states across the nation a template for greater prosperity for all of their residents. For more information, you can visit ALEC.org and richstatespoorstates.org. For American Radio Journal, I'm Jonathan Williams. Thanks for listening.